Respected listeners, we are reading the book Fatima is Fatima by Dr. Ali Shariyati. We finished our last session on page 72 and we were reading chapter number 8. Today we continue from page 72, chapter number 8 with the new subtitle, Who is the Contemporary Woman? Serving oneself versus serving others. I may remind you here that this reading is being presented to you by Nighat Raza from the platform of Kashana-e-Baseerat. So we begin with this part of the chapter 8. In the 15th and 16th centuries following the Renaissance, with the passing away of traditions and ancient religion, the thoughts of Descartes and the logic of analytical science replaced natural sensitivities and religious feelings. According to Durkheim, the concept of individualism, in other words, individual independence, is one's relationship in one's society, that is family, tribe or country. Or the serving of oneself replaces the spirit and unity of society and the serving of others, that is the socialism of Durkheim. Utility replaces values. Realism replaces idealism. Instincts replace spiritual efforts. Welfare and the problems of life replace the seeking of perfection, consciousness of God and self-sufficiency. Intelligent logic is consciously which, through the unacceptable process of analysis, are related to a kind of eternal pleasure. Finally, known and suitable phenomena capable of analysis and synthesis, which are reasonable, can be considered to be relative and materialistic, in totality form the world as they accept change. They form the people, life, culture, all of the dimensions of the earth, elements of society and the unlimited attractions of the new spirit. They replace the essence of inspiration and the composite truths of values which are above one's individual will. They do away with anything which is only understood by the supra-intellectual, that is, everything that is beyond the intellectual continuity of logical science, such as the eternal, the hidden, and the Platonic. The roots of these things exist in the depths of being. Since the beginning of humanity, they have poked their heads through. They are enigmatic attractions from another world. They are from the essence of fate. They are absolute. Their source is divine destiny. Finally, nature replaces metaphysics. Science replaces inspiration. Pleasure replaces chastity. Happiness replaces perfection. Tranquility replaces piety. As interpreted by Francis Bacon, power had replaced truth. This spiritual and intellectual change in the deep evolution of human values, the change in the main direction of culture, knowledge and feelings, the new means of earning a livelihood in families, new views of love and the relationship between men and women, the place of women in society and their relationship to men has left revolutionary effects upon the roots of the fabric of life, literature, art, and sensitivities. All things are analyzed according to the science and logical vision of Descartes. This includes the sacred and ethical principles which people have always looked at with the view that they were values above human knowledge, that is, divine virtues. They are now analyzed as material things. Among the values of women and love, which had previously existed together in a halo of sanctity. They were hidden in the imagination, spirit, inspiration, and common sense. Where these forms remained untouched, they placed them upon a blackboard and analyzed them. One of the people responsible for this is Claude Bernard, who saw human beings in corpses without spirit. Freud considered the spirit to be a sick pig, and in the view of the bourgeois, life is money. The result of this research is what we see now. Opposed to these were the Christian priests. Next to their laboratories were churches. They had nothing to offer other than excommunication. They were club wielders whom on one feared. Compared to these people, whom at least reasoned and gave examples, they simply cried out, "Religion is dying." They issued unreasonable canon laws. They constantly threw the fire of hell into the faces of their parishioners, but to no avail. A woman, as far as her life was concerned, was part of a family. Even though she had no independence, human personality, at least she could easily be dissolved within the family, which was one spirit. Little by little, she became economically independent. She began working outside the home. With industrialization in full motion and full new twists, with the daily progress and improvement in social occupation, women were pulled out as well and went to work. From society's point of view, economic independence has made her socially independent. Thereafter, she finds individual existence beside her husband and children. Today, before marriage and setting up a household, she has individual independence. Because she has developed intellectually and logically, this has of itself altered her relationship with others, a man, her lover, her father, and with her family. It is no longer based on sensitive feelings or instinctive attractions or deep, unconscious spiritual efforts, but rather upon the policy of intellectual accounting and detailed calculation. She has been freed from many social, family, and religious chains through her accountant's vision of the situation. She is now capable of seeing reality, being able to analyze and intellectualize, seeking the self, finding her own interest and individual profits, and spending for herself. She authentically seeks pleasure, encounters things, and looks for tranquility, intelligence, and happiness. At the same time, however, many of her deep feelings have to be taken away from her. Her hereditary feelings, which are other than the intellectual, have been removed. Her humaneness has suffered and has left her lonely, but it has made her independent. Durkheim has shown that in the past the social spirit was strong. Whenever economics and individuality grew from the economic point of view, individuals cut their family roots, their sensitivities, their traditional ideas, and their spirit. They became independent. This independence gave them multiple possibilities. The very fact that an 18-year-old girl can very easily get her own apartment and live alone without any supervision is one of them. A woman is allowed many freedoms in her home because of economic reasons. Whenever she becomes angry over life, she can flee from her situation as she has individual rights. Because she has economic independence and because she exemplifies an intelligent behavior, having the patience to bear the sorrow of another does not fit with a healthy intelligence. Therefore, whenever she must make a sacrifice or give an abundance, she closes her eyes. For peace of mind, pleasure, freedom, and for anything which affects her own well-being, she opens her eyes. This is because things like loyalty, sacrifice, generosity, gratitude, pledges, contracts, and love are all spiritual and ethical things. They are not capable of intellectual and logical reasoning. Sacrifice my life so that others may live, or bear sorrow so that others may have peace, are transactions which do not pay off no matter how you account for them. I have no need for them. Then who can answer her questions? Why should I sacrifice myself for he who needs me? Why should I remain loyal to him? Why should I remain with this ugly, weak man because of a promise and an agreement that was made when he was handsome, strong, and he was the only creature around me at that time? I bore him patiently. Why should I now close my eyes to the handsome, strong man who is available and who understands my spirit and my goals? Sartre presents an example. A woman is the wife of a man who has no attractive qualities. In comparison to him, there is an attractive man who loves her. The intelligent way is clear. Both men need her. One needs her as a wife, the other as a lover. The woman does not need the first man, but rather the second. By remaining loyal to her husband, two needs are sacrificed and one is satisfied. In fleeing from him and letting him go, two needs are satisfied for one. The duty of this woman is clear. Her intelligence makes the decisive decision, a clear mathematical formula. The reason behind why a woman should sacrifice two needs for one is not simply an intellectual, logical, Descartesian, or Freudian one. An intelligent woman thinks and acts logically. Economic reasoning and social rights present her with the possibility of doing it. She does it. Children come into the world. A child restricts the freedom of her mother and father. Intelligence cannot accept the fact that the peace of mind and the freedom of two people be sacrificed for one person. They either do not bring children into the world, or they leave them with a nurse or in an institution. Among all of these impractical roots, illogical feelings, ethical and traditional binds, there is a conscience, a spirit which a woman holds on to. She solves it by immersing herself into the fabric and spiritual depths of a family. There are 100 unclear, irrational, and impractical rationalizations which encourage her to choose forgiveness, suffering, sacrifice for her husband, children, home, family, relatives, principles, and the sensitive values of life which have been disconnected. Because of economic and social independence of logic, which may underline feelings and seeing reality in her search and truth, she has developed an individual spirit and independence instead of gaining a social spirit where the individual is dissolved. Loneliness is the new subtopic, readers, and I start reading it. Loneliness is the greatest tragedy of the century. Durkheim has analyzed the situation in his book entitled Suicide. Suicide in the East is an exception. It is not a common accident. In Europe, it is not looked upon as an accident, but as a social phenomenon. It is not a happening or an accident. It is a reality. Its curve grows higher and higher every day in developed societies. The rate of suicide in Spain, which is an underdeveloped country, is less than another European countries, In Northern Europe, it is more, and in Northern America, it is the highest rate. The same curve exists in a country between the village and the urban centers, within an urban develop, within an urban development, between the developed areas and the more underdeveloped areas, and within a society between the new religion, modern group, and the old-fashioned religious group. Why? Because people are lonely. Religion ties people together. It causes a common spirit which is born in its followers to be shared. It nourishes a sympathy between each individual and God. In the past, each individual was linked through hundreds of connections with others, family, friends, and tribes. Social and economic self-sufficiency and makes them each needless of the other. It is used to be society which has gathered individuals together. Now, instead of gathering individuals, the family, neighbors, mothers, fathers, children, friends, and relatives defend the individual and his or her material needs. Intellectual growth and logic attack the spiritual and traditional religious connections. Intellectual growth, the logic of mathematics, the spirit of materialism, innate changes and encounters cause the spirit connections to become unstable and other than intellectual. The individual became independent. Individual reasoning of necessity becomes self-seeking. It becomes needless of others and then it stands alone. Because others have become at this and no longer needing an individual, they uproot themselves from them. Each person then seeks out his or her own interest and benefits. Individuals are alone on their islands. Then the thought of suicide attacks them because suicide is the neighbor of loneliness. Women choose their men and men their women. But the very fact that men and women are both independent and powerful and without need causes them to move towards each other only because of sex. Other factors such as feelings, love, kindness, social and traditional roots, inclinations towards friendship and sympathy, friendly companionships are not taken into consideration. Today, these sorts of invitations have died. Then what remains? A frail intellectual calculation without light, a logical necessity, or a force. Sexual freedom in men and women's thoughts, which officially begins at puberty, but not for all practical purposes begins whenever one wants, brings a phenomena into being. That is, in order to satisfy a sexual urge, the only requirement is the sexual urge. And if it is weak, its weakness can be eliminated with money. Only money is necessary. At different levels or with different amounts of money, the sexual urge can be satisfied. One can, at any time and under any government, buy Don Juan or an Onassis. The First Lady of America can also be bought for a price. The difference between her and those who stand on the street is one of the rate. Since boys and girls both enjoy sexual freedom, neither one wants to restrict themselves for the whole of their lives. It is not to be their interest to restrict the power for their sexual urges. And here, none of the answers of logic or wisdom justify an individual choosing one person for one's whole life, thereby restricting all of the freedoms of choice as to pleasure, beauty, and attractive things in life. The next subtopic in Chapter 8 is Forming a Family, which says, at the present time, Men and women freely satisfy their sexual urges in universities, restaurants, outings, and various gatherings of this kind. They continue until a woman comes to herself and sees that it is empty around her. No one any longer seeks her out, as they do not do it to review. No one any longer seeks her out, and if they do, it is to review, to revise the memory of the past. When a man has passed the freedom of his sexual cycle, when he has picked a flower from every garden, and from every flower its perfume, it has passed. There is nothing any longer for him which is interesting or new. His sexual urge has subsided. It has been replaced by attachment to his position and money. He seeks fame and worships positions. His inclinations are now towards getting a house and forming a family. These feelings appear in his being. A woman, face to face with the reality that she is no longer busy and no longer seeks her out, and that no longer seeks her out, and that no one seeks her out, and a man exhausted from his freedoms and forbidden endless sexual experiences, which have finally turned his heart, confront each other. They reach out towards each other at the end of a long and tiring road. They want to form a family. A family is formed, but that which drew these together, that which caused them to join hands, is the fear on the part of the woman of bankruptcy and no other being attended to. The man is tired and no longer interested in anything. A family has been formed, but in place of love and the intensity of an ideal, instead of creating feelings, pulsating, happiness, and imaginations together, exhaustion and fed upness sets in so that nothing is new. They know what is there, nothing. There is nothing which their hearts beat for. They know why they have found each other. They know what needs they have from each other. Both completely conscious, calculating, aware, seek each other out. Each knows what the other meant by the words, "Be my divine sacrifice." Each has achieved their means. Both sacrifice for the other. Both die for the other, but in the opposite way from which we normally understand it. This is why on the day of their wedding, the main hall of City Hall is filled because they are not allowed inside the churches. Someone from City Hall with a medal on his coat, looking like an employee of City Hall, attends to them, not a clergyman who is a symbol of the spirit, faith, reverence, and sainthood. Each couple is called forward exactly like molded sugar cones. Their names are read from a list. They answer yes. Often, several children standing behind the bride and the groom also answer yes. It shows their existence have influenced the yes of their mothers and fathers. They pay their money. They sign the register. The ceremony is over. Each returns to their mode, their home. The interesting part is here. From among the 200 to 300 brides, only 20 to 30 wear a bridal gown. Most of them say, "What at my age, in my condition, it would be degrading to wear a bridal gown." It is not right. Then the wife goes to work and the man as well. They have a rendezvous with their friends to meet at noon in a restaurant and eat lunch together. This, of course, only happens when the wedding to some extent has been full of happiness and excitement. Otherwise, they forget what had happened and what event had occurred. Most often, outside City Hall, after the civil ceremony, and the bride and the groom, who have been living together for a year or years, and each one has spent a year for even years living with someone else, give each other a cold look as if to say, so what? Where should we go? Fun? We are going out 1,000 times. We've gone out 1,000 times together. Embrace each other. We've tasted each other 1,000 times, and we fled from the taste. Home, we came from home. What appeals to them? Do they excite each other's imagination and feelings? Not at all. Then it is best if each continues their work each day like always. Families are formed in this way. Both man and woman with good scheming found each other and they formed an economic company, or else they were married because of the pressure of the law. Perhaps a child has been causing the father and the mother of the child to become a bride and a groom. They show no understanding, feeling, and desires towards each other. They do not sense any secrets in each other. No paradox in their union. Nothing begins, nothing changes, no imaginary points, no heartbeats, not even a smile upon their lips. This is why the foundation of a family becomes frail. Once the foundations have weakened, the children in that family no longer see understanding, warmth, and attractions, because the mother and father cannot sacrifice all of their freedom for their children. They put their child in a school or pension, and they only give it money so that they can continue their free life. Afterwards, having formed a logical and deceitful partnership according to the laws and having created a family, they then separate from each other, and the spirit and those possibilities continue for the man who has experienced thousands of warm and young embraces. How can this woman who is tired and fallen in spirit and whose masculine dominated actions cause disgust in the man satisfy his needs and keep him, and vice versa? A woman who can make 1,000 comparisons takes the worn-out man into her arms. Through her companions, her number is up. In such a situation, within a household which lacks understanding, feelings, novelties, and it has and is as unattractive as always with the loss of embraces, he turns to cafes, fraternities, new experiences, official and unofficial centers. Once again, contrary to the original invitation, the factor which keeps these two within the same household is an illogical one. The next subtitle, dear listeners, in this chapter is Women in the Consumer System, Sex Instead of Love. Societies which only authenticate things in the economic terms of production, consumption, consumer goods, and produce only understand economics. Women are no longer creatures who excite the imagination, nor speakers of pure feelings. Neither are they the beloved of the great lovers, nor do they have sacred roots. They are no longer spoken of in terms of mother, companion, center of inspirations, and mirror of life, nor are they faithful. Rather, as an economic product, women are bought and sold according to the positive, negative qualities of their sexual attractions. Capitalism, as a result of having developed leisure time, has shaped a woman to serve two purposes. In the first place, she fills the time between two jobs, which is part of the fate of society. The bourgeois exploit her and create a dry and absurd feature for her without any purpose whatsoever. She Should she not ask, why am I working? Why am I living? Who am I suffering for? Secondly, women are used as an instrument for entertainment. As the only creature who has both sex and sexuality has been put to work so that workers, office employees, and intellectuals can think about ways of spending their capital during their leisure time instead of thinking about the ideas of classlessness. For instance, women have been put to work to fill every empty moment of the life of the society. Art quickly joins the market so that they can meet the orders of the capitalists and the bourgeois. The main purpose of art has always been beauty, spirit, feelings, and love, which have now been changed into sex. The market of Freudism, the worship of the most vile and wretched sex, has been given as an intellectual philosophy. Realism is presented today in the form of an intellectually aware person. Imagination, poetry, and feelings of idealism have been emptied, and sex is introduced as the virtue of being contemporary art. This is why we find, instead of paintings, poetry, films, theatre, stories, novels, and plays surrounding us in the framework of sexuality. Capitalism encourages people to consume more in order to make people more dependent upon it. It is also to increase the amount consumed and the products produced. Woman has presented only as creatures who are sexy, and other than this, nothing. In other words, she is used as one-dimensional creature. She is placed in advertisements and used as propaganda for creating new values, new feelings, and drawing attention to new consumer products. They bring about the necessity of artificial feelings in people. In order to kill the feelings of which endings the profits of capitalism, women are thrown in order to kill the great and spiritual feelings which destroy capitalism. She participates to prevent capitalism's death. Sexuality replaces love. Woman, the imprisoned creature of the Middle Ages, has taken the form of free slaves in the New Age. In history, it is in great civilizations with progressive religions that women have held a high place through the kind of love she can give in people's feelings and in the arts, even though she does not have absolute unity or a direct relationship with art. But she is looked upon as the point of inspiration, feelings, and spiritual characteristics. Now she has taken the form of an instrument employed for her serving social and economic purposes. She is used to change the form of society. She is used to destroy the highest values of the traditional societies. She is used to change ethics. She is used to change a traditional, spiritual, ethical, or religious society for the sake of an empty, absurd, consuming society. She is used to transform art, which has been the theophany of the divine spirit of humanity. She is changed into an instrument for sexuality in order to change the type of humanity. But in the East is the new subtitle of the chapter, which says, Now it approaches the East. It is our time. Here its work is very easy. Since the Middle Ages, especially in the West, in Sweden, Norway, and even France and Germany, the sexual feelings of boys develop late, so that at 17 or 18 a boy feels no attraction towards the opposite sex, whereas girls are at their peak of their sexuality and seek out boys. That is why men get the feelings of wanting to escape, and women take on the offensive. It is this condition which causes disgust in men and brings about a deviated sexual life which until the end of their life hangs around their necks and even has an effect upon their homes. It is because of this that sociologists and psychologists of Northern European societies have many plans and designs about awakening the sexual urges of young European men with artificial stimulation and natural sex urges by means of women. In the East, this is not a problem. Young Eastern boys, before they reach the age of puberty, reach sexual puberty, and it is this very early sexual awakening which causes Eastern sociologists and psychologists to face many other problems. But where is the owner of this generation who thought about them? There is a war between two groups, and because of other things, conversations lead to type of clothes and special behavior, habits and tastes. Human problems, whether they are new or old, do not concern either side. The war is between old-fashioned and modern. Winning is to the advantage of neither of them. One lying is called civilized and the other lying is called pious, religious. Neither one of them relate is in the least to either civilization or religion. One, the ideological type, calls out Fatima, Zainab, and others. European women both are insulting to each other. Either they are lying to each other or their own ideologies are innocent and even separate from themselves. Europeans want to change Eastern society so that they can plunder our property, ride upon our thoughts and our feelings. They want to take the food from our mouths as well as to destroy other common sense values. Without destroying these things, they cannot take the food from our mouths. They cannot take our property. Thus, we must first empty ourselves and leave our molds. We must forget all of the other human values and all of our traditions, which were the very things which kept us upon our own feet. We must give these up and break them within ourselves. Once empty-headed with an important spirit, crippled and without content, we must become exactly like garbage cans which can fill with dirty and useless things and then are emptied. With the brain of the spirit of the East, they are doing this. They empty their contents. When they have no faith in anything, they have no intelligence or awareness, so that they have no hero. They think of their past as completely without value. When they believe their religion to be empty and full of myths, they feed spiritual meanings to be old-fashioned, reactionary, and that way of life to be ugly and detestable. They either do not know themselves, their children, and their spirituality, or else they know it badly. So what form do they change? They come out empty and thirsty and in need of the orders of the exploiters. Whatever the exploiters want to pour into their interior is whatever order they choose. They go to work plundering. It is because of this that they assign permanent slogans to the plundering of the East, emptying the minds of Muslims, Buddhism, Hindus, Iranians, Turks, Arabs, blacks and whites. All must take one form. They should only have one dimension. They must be consumers of Western economic products and have thoughts, but not think for themselves. Insistence upon old values, human values, tradition and religion, which are full of meaning, close the way to the West and guard the East. Insistence upon traditional values stands like a watchtower with a strong spirit against the West. They deferred Islam and independence. Forgiveness does not penetrate. Muslims are overflowing with honor, spiritual meaning, values, and pride. Their history, people, culture, faith, and religious characteristics give them independence, greatness, and something to hold their heads up high for. They see the Westerners as no way reached and newly civilized. They criticize them, humiliate them, confront them, but the West falls upon the soul of the Easterners like termites. Little by little, they empty out their contents. They even destroy all the forces of resistance which remain. In place of the brave guardians of the watchtowers, full of spirit and pride, they build a people empty of common sense, persevering and pride. The Easterners even forward to meet the enemy. They take whatever the West gives and do whatever they want them to do. They become exactly as Westerners had willed they would be. Ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of chapter 7 and we have read now 83 pages of the book. We shall begin with chapter 9, which is titled as What Role Did Women in the Attack? So we will begin with this 9th chapter in our next sitting. So we say goodbye to you until then, and we shall continue the reading in our next sitting, inshallah. Thank you very much.